Hey, it's not Christmas yet. I promise I get you another video out for the season, and we need to do our Christmas Carol episode. I am going to make this a tradition for the channel. All joking aside, when it comes to looking through all the different options for talking about the Christmas Carol again this year, there's quite a bit I could go for, but in the end I was wanting to talk about a childhood favorite before any others, surprise surprise. But this one predates even me in terms of how long it's been around, and it's been a family tradition to watch it every year. So I thought, why not? Let's make this the next Christmas Carol we dive into. Follow along as we talk about this year's version of the story, the Mr. Magoo Christmas Carol. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, I am your ever-friendly Pokeprof, and welcome back to Fascinating Fiction. Mr. Magoo is an interesting character when it comes to media, mostly because he's from the olden days of animation. While not as far back as Mickey or some of the other Disney classics, Magoo here was still among the earlier creations of the United Productions of America, or UPA. These guys were well known for a lot of those older cartoons, ones that were generally based off old classic stories like 101 Arabian Nights and The Emperor's New Clothes. Though if you're an animation buff at all, you probably know these guys for the creation of Gerald McBoing Boing, a young boy who spoke only in sound effects. Mr. Magoo was the only other real breakout character that they had among their animation studios, actually being nominated for 3 Academy Awards and winning 2 of them. The character himself is an old nearsighted man who often ends up getting into serious trouble because of his impaired vision, and yet either through luck or other characters, usually has everything come out right in the end. He's one of those older characters that some people might look at weirdly today because he's a bit of a one-note joke, but that was often the case with some of the older era cartoons. But it's because of this age of the character that he's got some noticeable aspects when it comes to the history of animation. In particular, the very subject of this video, it's the first ever animated TV Christmas special, predating both the Charlie Brown Christmas special and How the Grinch Stole Christmas. This special also does something different compared to a lot of the other versions of the Christmas Carol, and that's the use of its framing device. A lot of the other animated specials will usually play the story straight, having their characters acting and behaving as the actual Charles Dickens characters, regardless if they've ever been used before. Mr. Magoo, on the other hand, portrays the character as his normal self. More accurately, his normal self as a Broadway actor. Oh, and did I mention that this special is a musical?
Opening night, flash, 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 I'll be a smash on Broadway!
Outside of the question of who in their right mind gave Mr. Magoo of all characters a driver's license, the framing device for the rest of the movie is the fact that the entire special is a Broadway play. For the most part, we really don't get much of the reality of the situation intruding in on the actual Christmas Carol part of the special, but it is reminded to the audience here and there that this is a play, especially for the commercial breaks that the original release would have had. We also get the interesting aspect of the movie where, outside of this opening sequence and the last minute of the ending, this is about as much as we'll get to see of Magoo acting like himself. I'm pretty sure that they decided that if they were gonna have him be his normal, hard-to-see self, that it would get in the way of telling the actual story of the Christmas Carol, so outside of a comment here or there in the special itself, don't expect a normal Mr. Magoo humor. Speaking of the actual story of A Christmas Carol, there are some things that this special plays completely straight with the original story, and other things they've completely ignored. We get things like the Gentlemen of Charity playing their standard role, being here to ask Scrooge for money, but then the character of Scrooge's nephew is actually removed completely from the story, especially considering the fact that the special is trying to be a Broadway musical. It's not that surprising that something would get changed or altered from the original idea. Heck, the Beetlejuice Broadway musical does the exact same thing, but it's always interesting to see just what ideas are pushed forward and what are taken away. And this is where we get the first proper song of the actual musical, Ringle Ringle, which goes over nicely with Scrooge's greed.
Coins when they mingle make such a love is sound.
I'll honestly say that for the rustic nature of Magoo's voice, it's actually not that bad singing-wise, nor is this the first time that he's actually sung in his appearances. And while I would probably call the rest of the singers better, he carries it well enough. They also do something interesting with this first song as well by having Bob Cratchit sing counterpoint to Scrooge, though the lyrics are much more simple as they show off his discomfort than anything actually character-wise.
It's cold when they mingle. It's cold. I love it's frightfully cold.
From this point to the interactions with Jacob Marley, the film plays the original story mostly straight, only making some slight fun at Magoo's need for glasses. It's as we start the three Christmas spirits, though, that things change. For the first time that I can recall ever seeing, the ghost of Christmas Past isn't the first ghost that we see. Instead, we start with the ghost of Christmas Present. As far as I can recall, this is the only Christmas Carol that I've ever seen switch up the ghosts. Also, completely random fact here, but I absolutely love the look Christmas Present gives the audience when Scrooge goes on about just how little he pays Cratchit. This is where we get the next song called The Lord's Bright Blessing. This is a song that honestly hits a little bit close to home for me and my family. We never had a lot of money growing up, and we always tried to save and make sure that we've got stuff for the future. So, in a lot of respects, we relate heavily to the Cratchits in this special, promising ourselves that even if we didn't have the money for all the things that we wanted, that we will be able to get them eventually.
We will someday, I vow.
It's a bit of a bittersweet song, one filled with optimism for the future while dealing with the troubles of the present, and it's one of the most solid songs of the entire musical, as you'll see once we get to the end. This is where we get one of those cuts that I was talking about, one that was there for commercials and also serves as a transition between scenes, actually using the framing device of the play to have the curtains close. It's with the Ghost of Christmas Past, though, that the feels of the special really come into effect. Remember how in the Muppet Christmas Carol, I called out how they don't really do anything with young Scrooge, not showing how rough his childhood was? Yeah, in this special, they instead give young Scrooge not only an incredibly sad song, but an incredibly sad song that is a duet with his older self, appropriately called Alone in the World.
A hand for each hand was planned for the world. Why don't my fingers reach?
Yes, the lyrics are simple. Yes, it's a bit of a drive-by song number, only here long enough to capitalize on young Scrooge's feelings. But damn it if you don't want to just give the kid a hug after hearing this. But this is also a bit where some of the weaknesses of the film really come in. By the structure and just how the songs are done, they feel a little drive-by. While yes, it's fitting for us to have a musical number about the sadness of child Scrooge, the fact that it's here and gone without anyone really acknowledging or changing from it can throw you for a bit of a loop. Though I will say that this is far from the only musical that just puts in a song to just have a song. After this, we continue with past showing us Scrooge's romance to Belle, both the build-up and the downfall. Much how we got the song in the Muppet Christmas Carol with When Love Is Gone, here we instead get the song Winter Was Warm, detailing the fact that Belle no longer feels that Scrooge loves her as much as he does money.
Winter was warm, summer soft that year.
And it just might be me, especially since I just watched this special for the video, but I kind of feel like Mr. Magoo spells it out a bit more clearly to the audience that it was his greed that caused them to end their relationship, something that I feel the Muppets didn't do a good job in showing. After Pass leaves in a rather evil way with her laughing, we get to see the ghost of Christmas Future, and this is played fairly straight up to the point where we meet the fence and the thieves. This is where we get another song, this time from the thieves themselves. It's like young Scrooge's song where it doesn't really add anything to the overall story, but it works well for a villain song, and frankly, I just love how silly and over the top it is.
We're just blank, blank, blank.
Did they just use blankety blank blank as a way to convey cuss words? Oh, wait, 1960s public television. Yeah, that tracks. We're getting close to the end of the film now, though, and like any good Broadway musical, you know what that means? Reprises of the old songs. The first one we get is Alone in the World coming back, sung as the ghost of Christmas future leaves Scrooge alone near his grave marker. And I've gotta say, even with its simplistic lyrics, it's a bit of a haunting song when cast over gravestones.
Where is a voice to answer mine back?
There's one more commercial break, and it's as we run towards the proper ending of the Christmas Carol that we actually get Magoo acting like his more traditional self, such as mistaking a statue of himself as a mirror, among other things. But it's when we get to the Cratchit's house that we get the reprise of Ringle Ringle, though the lyrics are changed around to be more about giving the money away than keeping it locked up.
Give them away and nobody can rob you.
And this leads into a reprise of Lord's Bright Blessing, serving to both end the play and our movie, outside of a slight bit of more traditional Magoo humor to end things off. As far as an actual adaptation of the Christmas Carol, I don't think it needs to be said that this is a family favorite. This is one of those versions of the story, along with the Muppets, that me and my family go and rewatch every year, and I would be lying if I didn't say the fact that some of these songs live rent-free in our heads, especially during the season. What actually surprised me, though, is just how many people still remember this cartoon despite its age. Not only have some people I've talked to about it recently still recall it, and like me, grew up with it, but it's been referenced in popular media, with there even being a parody of the entire special in a Christmas episode of The Simpsons. Like, I know I haven't kept up with the Yellow Family outside of being bought by the mouse, but I'm still kind of shocked that they even acknowledged this special. I think overall that this is probably up there with one of the more entertaining specials when it comes to the Christmas Carol. While there are definitely better acted ones, and goodness knows we will get to those in the future, there's always a bit of fun of having a silly character sing and dance along with telling us the story of Scrooge and his ghostly visitors. Mr. Magoo hasn't really been one of my favorite cartoon characters, but that doesn't change the fact that this has held a lasting impression on me since childhood. It's a fun, entertaining version of Dickens' original story that captures the heart while having some goofball fun. And sometimes you just can't help but sing along.
We'll make the whitest Christmas, the lightest, brightest Christmas, a Christmas far more glorious than
And with that, we end 2023 here on Fascinating Fiction. I wish you all a happy holidays, a wonderful new year, and good wishes for your futures. We'll be back in January, but until then, stay frosty.